Hello, friends. It's Miss Acevedo here, and I am a volunteer with USC Life JEP Young Scientists Program. And today we're going to be doing a demonstration with pollution. So if you don't know what that word means, do not worry. We're going to figure out what that word means. And today, if you can see my fish, if it pops up here in a second, but today we're going to be looking at Earth and human activity. Earth and human activity. Number 3. So that means we've learned about ocean habitats already, and desert habitats, and polar habitats, and grassland habitats. We learned about the animals that live in that habitat. We've also learned about the ocean specifically. That means we took a really close look at the ocean, and we learned about how and why the ocean moves, and we learned about currents. So now we're on week 3. And we're going to be talking about Freddie the fish today and the pollution that hurt Freddie the fish. So come with me, kindergartners, and we're going to look at this amazing experiment today. So today we will be able to learn what happens when humans don't treat a river very nicely. And we're going to be able to list the effects that humans have on animals and their environment, using Freddie the fish as an example. And if you don't know who Freddie the fish is, do not worry, you're gonna meet him today. And what we're gonna do is, after we look at what happens to Freddie the fish, we will write a solution to keep Freddie's environment safe and clean. So we're gonna find a way to help Freddie. So that's what we're learning today. That's our learning target. So here is Freddie the fish. And Freddie the fish is going to take a trip down the river today. And we're going to watch what he encounters and how Freddie the fish ends up after his very, very long journey. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So give me 1 second. There we go. And just give me 1 second. I'm going to just stop sharing my screen. Hi. And I'm going to make sure that you can hear my sound. And it looks like I am sharing my sound. So in 3, 2, 1, Freddie's going to pop right back up for us. There we go. So here is Freddie the fish. And we're going to go ahead and watch what happens to Freddie. Hello, friends. Today we're going to be doing an experiment with our main character, Freddie the fish. This is Freddie the fish. He is a happy fish that lives in crystal clear water. He enjoys the shade of the tall trees along the riverbank and gets lots of insects to munch on each day. Freddie is a very happy fish. One day, Freddie wandered and wondered what it was like beyond his part of the river. He decided to go on a little journey and explore the rest of the river. He headed downstream because he was ready to see the world. Along the river, Freddie first comes across a spot where bulldozers are taking out trees and clearing the land. Soil and dirt roll into the river because there are no tree roots to hold the soil in place. Poor Freddie gets the soil in his gills. Without the trees, Freddie notices he's feeling very, very warm. So I'm going to start putting some soil on Freddie. As Freddie continues down the river, he spots some black and white animals moving closer and closer to the river. While these animals are getting a drink of water, they drop a present into the water for Freddie. Freddie is not impressed with the smell or the sediment that it has stirred up. So those animals left some poop for Freddie in the ocean, or in the river. So we're gonna go ahead and put our poop on Freddie. As Freddie rounds the corner, he has to dodge a golf ball that nearly lands in the river. The golf club likes to keep their courses looking nice, so they use lots of fertilizer. Unfortunately, when it rained last, it caused the fertilizer to run off into the river. So we need to add some fertilizer on Freddie. After swimming a while, Freddie began to notice a salty taste in the water, and he started to feel the sting of salt in his gills. All the salt was used on the roads in the winter had worked its way into the river. Ouch! It's hurting. Freddie is in pain. Wow, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 contaminants that have hurt Freddie so far. Let's keep reading. Freddie continues on and passes a picnic site at the local park. As he was passing, the wind began to blow litter into the river from the park. There's our litter. Litter is another word for trash. Freddie is starting to feel a bit distressed, but he keeps moving on. It began to rain, and Freddie notices that this rain is a little different. It turns out that this rain is acid rain caused by air pollution. So now it's raining acid rain on Freddie. Along the river edge, Freddie comes across an old abandoned factory. There's a lot of toxic pollutants and rusty materials seeping into the river. This creates sludge in the river. Freddie tries to swim through it. So time to add our sledge. After struggling, Freddie finally gets through the toxic pollutants in the river. Along the side of the river, Freddie notices a man dumping oil from his car into the river. The oil gets deep into Freddie's gills, and he starts to have difficulty breathing. Time to put in the oil. Whoa. Freddie tries to swim through all the pollutants, but he gasps and takes his last breath. Now that we've seen everything that's happened to Freddie on his journey down the river, what are some of the items that made Freddie the fish sick? Nice, so we just watched that video, and I'm gonna come and I'm gonna just quickly move here so I can make it bigger. But we just saw a lot happen to Freddie, right? Freddie's had a very, very long day, and we saw all these contaminants.
Hello, friends. Today we're going to be doing
affect Freddie. That means they change the way Freddie felt, right? That's what affect means. Now, we know that Freddie the fish is a happy, happy fish in crystal clear water, but he decided that he's going to go down the river and he wants to explore more. And we saw what happens when he explores. So here's Freddie at the beginning of the story. How do you think Freddie feels at the beginning of the story? Freddie's here in just clear water. I'm sure some of you were thinking that Freddie feels a little happy, right? He doesn't feel sick. He's minding his own business. Freddie feels okay. Now, let's review some of the things that happened to Freddie. Well, Freddie went beyond the river to go see the world. And we saw here's a closer look at what happened. Freddie went down the river and there's no trees. All the trees were cut off by the bulldozers. So now all this soil is running into the river because there's no trees to stop that soil. So now that river is nice and muddy. So there's soil in Freddie's gills, right? So we saw the soil go into Freddie. Then an animal, and it says a black and white animal, dropped a present. And that present is poop. Yeah, so animals sometimes, they don't poop in one spot. They don't poop in a toilet like we do. They poop anywhere they want to poop. And sometimes that poop ends up in rivers. And now Freddie is full of poop. There's our poop. Then Freddie was swimming and swimming, and then he noticed the water was starting to get green. And that water is green because there's a golf course nearby, right? Where people swing their golf clubs. There was a golf course nearby, and Freddie was swimming in fertilizer. So we used green to show fertilizer. And there's our green fertilizer. Then Freddie kept swimming and swimming, and then he started to notice that the water had a salty taste, right? So that means there was salt in the water. And during the winter, when there's ice, they use salt to melt the ice. But what happens is that salty material ends up in the river. So there we see that there's salt in Freddie's gills. Next, Freddie keeps swimming, and then he notices, whoa, he has to swim past trash, litter. Litter is a very, very fancy word for trash, and we can see that in the river here. There's cups, and there's water bottles, and there's pieces of papers, and we see that the wind blew all this litter from the park into the river, and now Freddie's swimming in trash. There's our trash, our litter, right? Because litter is a fancy word for trash. So Freddie keeps trying to move on, and then it starts raining. But this is not regular rain. He noticed that this rain burns his body. This rain is called acid rain. Acid rain happens when there's a lot of pollution in the air, a lot of chemicals, and those chemicals mix with the water. And it's not fun rain. It's not the normal rain that you feel on your body. This rain hurts, and it's hurting Freddie. So there's our acid rain. Now, Freddie is ready to go home, but he can't go home. He is stuck in sludge, dirty, muddy sludge, right? And it's very toxic for Freddie. So there's the sludge. You see, Freddie cannot move out of this river. Last, Freddie is struggling. Freddie is in pain. And Freddie notices this man coming from his car, and he's coming with oil from his car, and he dumps that straight into the river. And now Freddie doesn't feel so hot. He doesn't feel good at all. He's trying to breathe, but there's so much in his gills. There's soil, there's salt, there is trash. He's having a hard time breathing. And then Freddie just can't breathe anymore, right? Because he's full of dirty contaminants or pollution, right? So this is how Freddie ended up after there was oil on him. I don't think that that's a happy fish. Now, how do you think Freddie feels? Freddie started very happy, and now Freddie feels different. How do you think Freddie feels? Yeah, I think I know what a lot of you were thinking, and that's Freddie doesn't feel good, right? Freddie feels sick. Freddie feels tired. Freddie feels dirty, maybe. Freddie's not having a good day. So let's think about what were some of the items that made Freddie sick. Take a look at the picture and just think of 2 to 3 things about what made Freddie sick. And we'll come to that later. Now, I want you to think, and I want you to put yourself in Freddie's shoes. How would you feel if your home was treated like Freddie's home? That means somebody dumped litter in it, somebody dumped salt on it, somebody dumped soil on it, somebody dumped oil on it, somebody dumped sludge on it, and then somebody pooped in your house. How would you feel if your house was treated like Freddie's house? Yeah, I would feel sad too. Now it's time to look at this big vocabulary that we have. Today we're going to learn about the word environment, right? Environment's a big word, but environment just means a home, a healthy place that we live in. It's the trees, the air, the water. It's all the living things around us. That's our environment. And we're going to talk about this big word, and I told you I was going to teach you what this big word means. pollution. Yeah, pollution, if you can see here, pollution is not great. Pollution is another word for dirty or full of trash, right? We see here that the earth environment is not doing so well when it has pollution on it. And you can see here, here's our litter. So we know that all living things need a healthy environment. An environment is everything around us, and it includes the water, air, and other living things. Humans, animals, and plants choose to live in an environment that has things that they need to survive. Humans and animals need clean air, clean water, and clean land to survive. Just like this beautiful image here, we see the water's clean, the air is clear, and the trees are nice and healthy. We need clean water, air, and land to survive. That's a good environment. Now, pollution, and let me move myself here. Pollution is when things, is when we do things as humans that dirty our environment. That means we dirty our air, we dirty our water, and we dirty our land. And that happens when we're not careful. So if our environment is polluted, that means dirty, we can become very sick, like Freddie. When people dump trash, oil, and even poop into our water, our rivers, our creeks, our lakes, our ponds, our oceans, it affects our sea animals, right? We learned that the word affect means that it changes the way that our sea animals are and live. Factories or cities sometimes release oils and poisonous chemicals, and that changes our water, right? And we saw what happens when there's pollution in our water. We saw that when soil, poop, fertilizer, salt, litter, acid rain, sludge, and oil goes into our rivers, it does not end up good for us, right? We end up like Freddie. So it is our job to keep our environment clean and to help humans and animals survive. So we need to think of a solution. A solution is an idea or a way to solve a problem. So how could we save Freddie's environment? How can we think of a solution to change the pollution, right? So take a chance to think. There's some ideas here. I'm going to take a second before I share my ideas, but go ahead and think of your ideas. How could we save Freddie? Nice. So we can save Freddie's environment by picking up trash. That's the easiest thing that we can do is we can pick up trash and we can choose not to litter. That means we're not going to throw things, we're not going to throw litter in our environment. We're going to pick it up and throw it away. So when we do this, that means our trash will not end up in rivers and oceans. But if we throw our trash on the floor, it will end up in rivers and oceans. So now it's your turn to do some thinking and learning. If you want to try this Freddie pollution experiment at home, here's a picture of all the things that you need. You need soil, you need raisins for the poop, you need green food coloring for your fertilizer, you need coffee for the sludge, you need salt for salt, you need pieces of paper for litter, you need dish soap for acid rain, and you need syrup for oil. So here's all the things that you can use as your contaminants for Freddie. And you're gonna need a plastic container and a small fish sponge or a picture of a fish to show who Freddie is. So just like that. So if you need an example, here's my example. And you can try this at home with your family. And all you have to do is go to the beginning of this video and play the story and do the experiment with me. Then when you're all done exploring with Freddie the fish, it's your turn to show your learning. So that means you need a piece of paper and some crayons. And you're gonna draw and label a picture of Freddie, and you're gonna write a sentence about your solution. So here's how Freddie ended up. So you're gonna do your drawing of Freddie, and then you're gonna answer the question, how can you help save Freddie? And here's a way you can start your sentence. I can help save Freddie by. And you're gonna finish up that sentence and you're gonna have a drawing and a sentence to show your learning today. Now, before we go, I wanna share with you another Scientist of the Week. Our Scientist of the Week is Mario J. Molina. And Mario is an environmental scientist. That means he uses his knowledge of natural sciences and he uses it to protect our environment, right? To make sure that we have clean air, clean water, and clean land. When Mario J. Molina is the first Mexican-born scientist to win a Nobel Prize in chemistry, and he discovered a serious environmental threat. That means something was wrong. And he noticed that our air had CFC gases. And those gases are very, very harmful for us. So he is the scientist that discovered that and helped protect our air. So Mario J. Molina is an amazing environmental scientist. And maybe one day, if you're interested, you can become an environmental scientist too and help protect our land, air, and water. So I'm gonna sign off for today, friends. It was a wonderful experiment that we did today, and I'll see you next time. And we're gonna be moving on to engineering. So have a happy, happy day. Goodbye, everyone.